Greetings, my saplings. In today's video, we are going to be discussing the white Alpha Edge 4D. To be specific, like always in these How to Cop guides, we will be talking about some release info for the sneakers, some background information, how to cop them, and of course, for those of you interested, some resale predictions. With that, we're actually going to start off with the background information for this sneaker, but for those of you who are only here for the How to Cop, feel free to skip to here. But for the rest of you, let's jump right into this. As of November 2018, we have now seen over 15 different types of Adidas 4D sneakers. Adidas has been dropping these in very scarce quantities since they currently don't have the technology to mass produce these very quickly. However, this is really just the beginning, guys. Adidas had plans to release 100,000 pairs of 4D shoes this year, so evidently, that's not a lot for this entire year. There's not just going to be more pairs in 2019, but in fact, you might even have personalized pairs for your very own foot. Now, on February 17th of 2018, we saw the gray Alpha Edge release. This was the easiest 4D to obtain, and now we're actually getting a repeat of this. November 17th, for $300, we are seeing the white Alpha Edge 4D. And with this release, it becomes more and more evident that these are eventually going to be mass produced. Stock is very similar to the gray pair, with currently over 3,000 pairs for Adidas US alone. But with the background information out of the way, why don't we jump into how to cop these? So the first site that I wanted to mention that's dropping these is actually Soulbox. Soulbox, though, will actually be dropping these on the 16th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Usually, they drop on the day of the release at 3 a.m. Eastern Time, so I don't know why it's the case here. Anyway, Soulbox will be doing a queue like they always do, which basically means you'll have a page come up where it says you're waiting in a queue. You'll see the little guy walking, and this means that it is going to be a randomized process. Hence, you guys can use multiple people jig if you wish. Now, I do want to warn you guys, you do run the risk of getting IP banned since they do track your IP address here, but I do also want to mention that personally, I haven't been banned off of Soulbox. I've been banned off of other sites, and even when you do get banned, it's a soft ban that only lasts a couple of hours. But the main thing about Soulbox, just please bear in mind, guys, that the retail is about $350 US, considering this is in euros, and then they're also charging shipping. But in addition to Soulbox, there's obviously going to be many places where you could purchase the shoe for much cheaper. For instance, there's tons of raffles. In fact, I made a raffle list on my Twitter. You could feel free to check that out. My Twitter is KeithAdam10. And what I actually wanted to talk about was something that we haven't mentioned since, I want to say, the Off-White Presto release, which was a really long time ago. And I know a lot of you guys were asking about this, so I felt like this would be the perfect time. And essentially that is, how do you make multiple entries on raffles to increase your chances of winning? Of course, this is how I won the Nigel Jordan 1s and many other raffles before that. So as I was editing the video, I just remembered that I didn't actually receive the Nigel ones because Chase flagged it, and that leads me to say, here's a huge tip, guys. When you're using Chase or really any card, just please, guys, notify your credit card company and bank that you're going to be receiving these charges, because I don't want you to take an L the way I did, where I win the raffle, but I don't get the shoe. It really sucks. So I'm going to walk you guys through this step by step. It is so easy you won't believe it. Starting off with the email address, this is very simple. You could, if you want, use different email addresses, or what's even easier than that, you can just add a +1, +2, or plus any random number, whatever you please, right before the @gmail.com. And yes, it does have to be a Gmail account. Then regarding the phone number, you could put a completely random phone number because there is no verification process through this. But then I do recommend keeping the area code within the country that you plan on having it shipped to you. So for example, me in the United States, I'd want to make sure that it's a United States area code. And then moving on to the address, this isn't too hard as well. If you happen to live in a household, this is not for apartment buildings, you can add an address line 2. For example, 1A for address line 2, 1B, 2B, 3C, whatever floats your boat, guys. It really doesn't matter. But I do want to mention, if you do live in an apartment building, you don't want to do this because you actually need that address line too. For you guys, all you guys have to do is change up the last word in your address. For example, if it happens to be street, you could change it to ST or ST dot, whatever floats your boat. Just make sure the characters are different. And then at the beginning, if you want, you can also add a couple of random letters or characters, such as like ABCD, and then you can add a space right before your address and you'll be fine. And finally, the last thing I wanted to mention, for SNS, this is the example that we're using, and also for End Clothing, and I'm sure there's other prepaid raffles that I'm forgetting about, you do have to enter in your payment information, because once you're entering, you're agreeing to, if you win, you're going to be charged. So obviously, I'm letting you guys know about this for End Clothing and the SNS raffle, but you have to make sure that your payment information is different for every single entry when it does require payment. Now, the trick here is that you don't actually need different credit cards. If you only happen to have one credit card, that's completely fine. Check out privacy.com. I'm not sponsored by them, but they are very reliable and they are safe. You can make multiple credit card numbers through there. I believe you can make up to 8 credit cards per credit card. So if you have 2 credit cards, you can make 16 entries, which is obviously a lot. All right, so now, moving on to Adidas. First of all, I wanted to start off with Adidas UK. So you can actually sign up now on the Adidas UK app, and there will be reservations for London. So if you're willing to drive to London, you can feel free to spoof your location if you're not exactly within that vicinity, but you're still in UK. In fact, recently I just made a video on it, which was fantastic timing considering what just happened today. You know, we had the Off-White Vapor Maxes drop via a sneakers pass, which was only exclusive access. And then we also had for everyone a sneaker stash, which went very well for me and a couple of you guys as well. So if you haven't already, I do suggest checking out how to spoof your location, whether you're using it for sneakers or for Adidas. But anyway, moving on to Adidas US. So for Adidas US, we will be getting these November 17th at 10 a.m. Eastern time. Now, I understand that I mentioned this in a previous video about 1 to 2 months ago. So what we're going to be going over for this is how you can tell if it's going to be a waiting room or a first come first serve before the release, because as of now, we can't necessarily tell, so I wouldn't be able to give you that information. And for those of you who already know how to do this, because I mentioned this about 2 months ago or so, feel free to skip to this portion of the video if you already know what you're doing. But for the rest of you, let's jump into this. So step 1, you're going to want to right click on the product page. Then step 2, you want to click view page source. Step 3, hit Command F. Basically, Command F is just a way to search something. You may have used this for schoolwork before. Step 4, you're going to want to type in waiting room product in the little box at the top of your screen. You don't actually have to type in the whole thing. If you type in waiting room or just waiting, you should see it come up. Basically, you're looking for if it equals true or false. True means it's going to be a waiting room, and false, what you're seeing on the screen right now, essentially means it's going to be a first come first serve. Now, it is very crucial to note that this does often change right before the release. This could be 12 hours before the release, or perhaps even an hour before the release. So I highly recommend that you keep on checking on this. If I'm not able to tweet out to you guys or anything like that, you guys now have the power to do this on your own for this release and any other release in the future. It's obviously something that's very useful to know for future reference as well. If I'm being 100% honest, in my opinion, I do believe it will change to true eventually, considering the gray pair of the Alpha Edge 4Ds did do a waiting room, but of course, anything's possible, and considering it does say first come first serve right now, well, it says false, which means first come first serve. Considering it does say that, anything's possible, guys, and I want you to be 100% prepared. So hypothetically, if it does happen to be a first come first serve, basically just make sure you're signed into an Adidas account. You have autofill already set up. Also, quick tip, use Command R to refresh. This allows you to keep your mouse hovering over where the size selection would pop up. I know you're only saving a couple of seconds, but when it comes to a first come first serve, that's definitely crucial. And for Windows, I believe it's F5, because for Mac it is Command R. Now, hypothetically, if it happens to be a waiting room, of course, you guys already know what to do. You have to use the multiple people jig. And no, I'm not going to explain this. I feel like it's insulting to a lot of my subscribers who've been watching me for a long time. You guys hear me talk about this a lot, but perhaps in the future I'll mention it again. I just don't want to mention it every video. But anyway, with how to cop out of the way, why don't we move on to some resale predictions. So first thing I wanted to mention to you guys that it's important to note that stock is very high for a 4D sneaker, considering that stock is very similar to the gray Alpha Edge 4Ds. But it is also really important to note that there is significantly more demand on this white pair in comparison to the gray pair. But I still don't want you to expect a lot of profit, and by a lot of profit, I mean proportionally. So hypothetically, if this was a release that was selling for $100, say that was the retail, heck yeah, that's a ton of profit. But considering the retail is $300, I wouldn't really say this is very profitable, because proportionally, it's not going to be anything crazy. Perhaps you'll be able to sell these for $400 after the release, which means after fees, depending on where you sell, whether it be eBay, GOAT, StockX, Soulbox, even Flight Club, which you could charge more for, but then there's the 20% consignment fees, you're still only going to be making about $50 or so, which is a good amount of money in my opinion. And that's why I'm going to be going for these shoes, but you have to be willing to put down that $300 investment, and I know that for a lot of you guys, that might not be worth it proportionally. So of course, I just wanted to let you guys know about this, but in the end, yes, I do think these are going to be profitable, especially because of the high demand and how the Alpha Edge 4Ds and grays are still profitable despite low demand, at least for a 4D sneaker, of course. Pre-sale already is looking very promising, and the reason I'm saying it's promising is because there's a lot of pairs already in circulation. So we know that we had the Canada release for these, and we also know that there was a Essence release, and I'm pretty sure a couple of other releases for these, but I'm not 100% on that. Basically, my point is there's already a lot of pairs in circulation, and the prices are still holding up. So obviously, expect the prices to drop, but I still am confident that you will be able to make some profit. If you are skeptical, though, stick to Adidas.com only, because Adidas.com does free return. With that though, I will conclude today's video. Feel free to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, if you perhaps learned a thing or two. Also subscribe and turn on post notifications if you happen to be new, just to stay 100% updated on these shoes or just future releases in general. With that, I'll see you guys later. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Good luck, of course.
I can't run and I can't walk. You hit me so hard, I don't want to talk. Get your foot off my foot. Get your foot off my foot, yeah! Why are you always in my way? Knocking me over every single day. Get your foot off my foot.